Mic check 1, 2.
How they sounding?
Crispy.
Oh man, I bet you guys are tired of watching that trailer.
And I bet you guys are also really wondering what the heck Meat Hang is.
Meat Hang 2020.
Meat hang.
What a meat hang. Meat hang.
This is Meat Hang 2020, baby.
What is Meat Hang? Kowalski, that is a great question. Essentially what Meat Hang is just a trip with a friend going and doing wild, crazy stuff. Meat Hang 1 was in Idaho. I lived in Idaho a couple years ago. We went and had an amazing time fishing, catching, cooking.
Got freaking Camp Chef Kowalski out here cooking up the mad sauce.
But without a camera. So we got a couple pictures from it, but it was a really fun experience. Really wild, pretty wild.
And start of a tradition.
Start of a tradition. And it gets its name, it gets its origin from this, it's kind of silly. We had a piece of meat, a big old steak, and we didn't know where to put it. So Kowalski stuck it on a knife and stuck it on a tree, and thus the meat was hanging. Meat Hang. So that is the deep and rich tradition, the rich history of Meat Hang. But Meat Hang 2020 was a little bit different.
I mean,
a bit different than Meat Hang 1.
This trip started all the way back in what, February?
We had so much trouble. A lot of you watching probably know, COVID-19 has been a big freaking issue. So there was a lot of planning, a lot of changing of plans. So it was kind of interesting having to work with what we were given. But next thing you know, Kowalski and I are on the freaking road heading to New Mexico. And why we chose New Mexico was kind of again, just a random coincidence, because we're looking at the weather. We knew it was gonna be warm. We knew we were gonna probably avoid some of the snow, and there was a good chance that there was some good fish in there. I did a little bit of research, so we're like, hey, Kowalski, wanna go to New Mexico?
And it was not too terribly far, from Kansas.
No, so it all seemed to work out in a way, but folks, what you guys saw was a little bit different than what actually happened. I'm sure a lot of you know, the camera only catches a very small amount of the details that went into this entire trip. You can kind of see the story arc of sorts of this trip, where we start really high, just drop into the red. I mean, we're pretty much just lowest of low.
Maximum demoralized. We almost ended up in Colorado. We were so mad.
But slowly but surely, we stuck with it, and we just kept getting better, and by the end of it, hopefully, as the footage shows, we were really dialed in, and just catching some awesome fish, and really getting to see what New Mexico has to offer.
And shout out Finn McMullen.
Dude,
He's
the man.
the trip, because man, you have to fish the Rio so much differently than up here or anywhere I've fished before.
It's so different.
It's the fish just do not know how to eat.
So, shameless plug, if you want to find out how they eat, go to the Tail Supply Shop and talk to the guides, because they know their freaking stuff. But with that being said, that was kind of a brief look at some of the ins and outs of our whole New Mexico experience. Let's get into, right now, the best, worst, and wildest of this trip.
So Mike, what was your best?
I would say my best was on the second day on the Rio. After we kind of figured out everything that was going on, where the fish sit, how they eat, middle of the day, man, maybe it's more towards the end of the day, I hooked into this fish. And looking back at the footage, it was a cut bow. Dude, it was one of the craziest eats and the craziest fights I've ever had, because Kowalski was way upstream, and I was kind of by myself. I had the big camera, and I was just chilling. And next thing I know, I'm hooking into this monster. And late in the day, it's hot, I'm sweating, I'm probably dehydrated too, and the sun's beating down on me, and I'm fighting this fish. I'm out of breath, because I know what's at the end of that line. The biggest fish of the trip so far.
Exactly.
And that's what we came for. That was the goal. The so much talk of big cut bows, big rainbows. That's what the Rio was known for.
Yeah. I think what was so cool too is you're fighting the fish, but you're also this is like one of the only fish we're catching. I have to get footage of this. So you reach back and grab the camera while you're fighting the fish.
He started running down the river, and I'm like, it's
And
not
I'm
happening.
I'm like way up the river, and I'm like, I have to get there to help get him get the footage. But you got all the footage on your own before I could even run down there.
Like a straight Sav. Just turned the camera, got him in, and it was, I would say for me, that was the best moment. For just me personally. It was one of the coolest experiences, and I think that's what when I look back at this footage, I'll always remember that fish, and God, just you start shaking. For those of you crazy fishy folk out there, you just get that shake. That little shiver shake of amazement, adrenaline, whatever it is. It's just hard to explain.
It was just so hype.
It was pretty hype. But Kowalski, what was your best moment of the trip?
Man, I kind of have a mix of probably maybe 4 moments that really were kind of all tied for my best moment.
Yeah.
I think 2 of them were when we first walked up on that lake, Middle Fork Lake. Man, that view was surreal. It was like something you would see in a painting or like a desktop background. You're like, oh my goodness.
That's amazing.
This is insane. I never would have thought something like this is in New Mexico,
Right.
a desert.
Right.
And then the other moment would have been when we first walked up to the Rio.
Oh my gosh.
'Cause like I said, I'm from Kansas. I have never even imagined a gorge like that, you know? I was thinking of like almost like a spillway type gorge, you know? So we'll hike down, hike back up. You know, we thought we saw it that night.
Right.
We saw the shadow.
I think it's over there.
We saw the shadow of one of the cliffs.
My God.
Not even close to what we thought.
Rolling up in the morning was surreal, because you look at this distance and the way it contrasts with the light was so insane. You're like, your brain doesn't really compute the distance. Like,
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And then probably one of the other ones was when I caught my first like pretty good sized one. You know, you saw how like energized we were, and it's like we had struggled so hard. And I know that fish wasn't really like that big, but just to catch something that wasn't this big after 2 or 3 days of just getting our teeth kicked in,
Just grinding.
it meant so much to be like, okay, we finally got something.
Well, and I'll jump on that, because that was one of my favorite moments too, was being a part of it. Like, when you're fishing with a buddy or you're fishing with a team, it almost feels like a team game. Like, his catch is also my catch. His win is my win, where I'm the one netting it, and it's like, yeah, let's go!
Yeah, because when you're fishing on the Rio too, if you're on top of a rock or you're in a tough spot, it is so hard to net the fish on your own.
Oh yeah, no, you're like doing some serious gymnastics or busting your teeth and
Yeah,
falling.
because you can see in that scene, like, I'm up on top of a rock and like trying to get down and everything, like you almost have to work as a team, like, hey, let's get the fish over to you, or I'll get the fish over to you. And yeah, it's tough. And when you do net it yourself, getting down from a rock while netting it, that's pretty exhilarating too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, so that was 3. What was number 4?
Number 4 would definitely be the very last day when we went to John Dunn Bridge.
Oh, that was heat.
We slayed them, and it was so validating to be like, we don't suck.
We are garbage fishermen.
We are garbage fishermen. Like, okay.
This is good.
Good.
So
that part of the river fished more like what we're used to, though.
and the fish, they were more willing to eat, it seemed.
Yeah, like it was just it was easier access, and it was just much easier fishing, I guess I could say.
Yeah.
But it was just validating, like, okay, we finally got like kind of our fix.
It's happening. So that was the best from Kowalski, the best from me. Now, gotta kind of go into the worst. What was the worst aspect?
Oh man.
And I think this is something we can both agree on.
Day one.
Day
one
one.
was tough. Honestly, day 2 was close.
And those first 2 days, I think, are what makes the trips so memorable, because you think about how bad it was, and in the moment, how just crud. It was the worst feeling in the world to be like, we did all this for nothing.
Yeah.
We did all this work for nothing, all the research and all the driving and all the packing, the planning, for nothing.
And it's like, day 1 was tough. We took a fat skunk on like a bunch of
biggest
different
L.
bodies of water.
Biggest L.
And then, but we're like, okay, we're gonna regroup, we're gonna go to the Rio, we're just gonna go just get into them so well.
Yeah.
And then we get there, I catch 2 fish in the first 30 minutes, and we're like, all right, let's go.
This is it.
We're
This
gonna
is what we're
slay.
looking for.
And then I didn't catch anything for like another 5 hours. I know you can't really tell it in the episode, but I went so long without catching a fish. Like, it was just, and you know, it was pretty tough, you know, all the hiking and stuff we were doing, jumping over the rocks, which was fun and it was cool. But it's also like, man, are we gonna get into a fish? And that's another thing, you know, we weren't fishing it correctly because we were fishing it like we would here.
Yeah.
But in the Rio,
It's
you have to
different, baby.
fish it backwards.
Pretty much.
You know, the fish are in front of the rocks.
Yeah.
And it's just way different.
And I would say another kind, not maybe worse would be the best way to describe it, but we put the pedal down, sun up to sundown, and that because of that, I would say we were running on pretty low gas tanks at the end of each day. That hike out of the gorge,
It's tough.
y'all pack a lunch, because after going down in, fishing for an entire day, and then looking up at this just massive wall of a cliff, you're like, yeah, we gotta go up that.
And I mean, if you're just hiking it just to hike it, it's not so bad because
No.
you can go at a reasonable pace.
Oh, yeah,
But
no.
we were hiking up it as the sun was going down.
Oh,
So we're kind of
God.
like, you know, we should probably get up that before it gets dark.
At dinner is motivation.
It's like, we do not want to fall down
No,
this.
But I think we can both agree that was probably the worst part of this trip. There wasn't, I don't know, I would say more good than bad. But that'll bring us into the last of this section, that being the wildest. Kowalski, what was the wildest moment for you?
Man, wildest moment would probably have to be, and you guys probably saw some footage of it, when we went way, north in the gorge.
That was day 3 on the Rio.
We got into some gnarly,
Holy cow, it was like scrub,
Yeah.
boulder, desert.
I mean, we're in the
style.
middle of the gorge, so we're not completely lost. But we're still semi-lost in the gorge because this stuff is taller than we are. We can't see where
No.
we're going. Then we're also on rocks, but it's also shrubs, and every rock you step on is teetering. And it's like, oh man,
gosh,
this
it
is
was so
sketchy.
bad.
And you're going at such a slow pace. I think we were lost in there for like an hour trying to get out.
We entered into Narnia pretty much and lost like so much fishing time because we were just like having, like you said, move so slow. But
We didn't know how long we were going to be in there either because we're like, oh yeah, we'll just hop through the shrub real quick and hop back down in the river. And we hopped into the shrub.
and there's nothing quick about it.
There's nothing quick about it. We had to go so slow because it was so thick. And I don't really know if we even got footage of us in the shrub.
No.
Because we were just like, we need to get out
We
of
just,
here.
yeah, it was about survival, not about footage.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, the wildest moment for me, kind of going along with that theme, would be the boulder hopping. When you're going to the Rio, you got to be aware that the hiking and the maneuvering is not going to be easy, and we were working some pretty sketch routes when we were.
You have to be physically ready.
Oh,
For the
100%, because there's a lot of times where you're having to make jumps or you're having to pull yourself up and you're putting pressure points down where, you know, if you slip or if something, you know, you miscalculate, it could end up being pretty bad. And I took some rough tumbles. You did too.
Yeah. No,
I mean-
we were jumping from these huge rocks.
Yeah.
We're wet. The rocks are wet. And every jump you take is
It's a risk.
pretty calculated.
Yeah.
And like we had a couple of times, you slip and you smack the rock.
There was this one time, I was walking ahead of Kowalski, and the next thing you know, he's like, where'd he go?
He just disappeared. He just fell into like this tiny hole.
The Rio swallowed me up, man. Oh, I busted my stuff. It was bad.
I thought you were hurt too.
Oh, dude, it was pretty rough. It was yeah, not the best, but
But I guess I should go with saying too, at the confluence, it's very, very difficult for the Rio. But if you go to the John Donne Bridge, like we did
Yeah.
at the end,
Yeah.
that is much easier navigating. It's not nothing like the
no,
confluence.
it had pretty nice paths and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, the Rio Grande in the gorge itself, that was a rough one. That was a rough one. Now that we've gotten a look at the general history of Meat Hang, a little overview of the trip itself, and some behind the scenes final cuts, worst, best, and wildest. Now we got to go over our final thoughts, closing thoughts on this entire trip.
So Mike, what are your final closing thoughts on the state of New Mexico?
You know, Meat Hang 2020 was an awesome trip. New Mexico was a wild experience, and I would say the overall takeaways would be, don't be afraid to explore, because we didn't really know anything about what we were getting into.
Went in with absolute minimal knowledge of the area and just really sending it.
New Mexico folks out there, clearly you guys are idiots. But seriously, folks, don't be afraid to go out there and explore and find new things. And I think it's really important to, if you're going to do one of these trips, bring someone along who can really help support you in, you know, both the morale side of it, but also physically, because there were some sketchy moments where if you were to get in trouble,
you need someone who's at least physically strong enough to pick you up and carry you at least a little ways. If you get hurt, there's no way an ambulance is getting down there, and there's not cell phone service down there either. So you guys got to be careful when you're down there. It can be really, really dangerous if you're not, you know, if something happens.
So it's all about going and exploring, but being somewhat safe when you do it. That would be my closing thought. Well, I should also say New Mexico, truly the land of enchantment. I was enchanted.
It was definitely a wild, tough trip, but I mean, honestly, it would be really fun to do it again, knowing what we know now.
Gosh,
man, we could make that week completely different starting over. But again, man, we got a lot of other places we want to check out too.
No, I think so too. And that transitions perfectly into Meat Hang 2021. Cards are kind of on the table. We don't really know what or where just about yet, but we got plenty of time.
We got plenty of time and plenty of places to choose from.
So any of you out there know a cool spot, want to see a cool spot, comment down below. Let us know where you think Meat Hang 2021 should be. Montana, Alaska, Washington, maybe go over to Maine, go to the Michigan Upper Peninsula, who knows?
May even end up in Canada.
That would be so sick. But seriously, folks, thank you so much for sticking around for this whole series. I had a lot of fun filming it, I had a lot of fun editing it. I mean, I
had so much fun because it's so much different than, you know, what I normally get to do.
Gosh, well, and same with me. Fishing the Midwest, it's a whole lot different than New Mexico, so
and
hopefully...
Fishing Kansas, a whole lot different than a lot of places.
So hopefully you guys learned a little, laughed a little, and just stuck with as we went through this trip, because really, it's more about capturing the memory for us. We just hope you enjoy it.
And if you're from New Mexico and you were just cringing the entire time, we apologize so much. But
yeah, sorry.
We're not that bad, we promise. We just, man, your guys' water is so much different than anything we're used to.
We'll give you credit for it. But, folks, whenever you're making your way, or whatever crazy trip you're doing, make sure to keep those feet in the water.
And until next time, tight lines.
I'm Alex Kowalski. You're watching Fly All Season, and this has been Meat Hang 2020.